Good morning, and welcome to our Lenten morning devotion for March 2nd, 2023. It's good to have you with us, whether you're joining us when we post or later on in the day. As a reminder, when we gather in devotion or worship or prayer or in fellowship, sometimes we light a candle to remind us that God is with us in a special way. I'm not lighting a candle right now. I'm in the home of my mother, and she is on oxygen. So having an open flame in around is probably not a good thing. It's definitely not safe. But I would invite you to light a candle if that has been your practice. I want to share with you today a couple of readings. We're going to be going to a different psalm. We've been reading the same psalm for several days. Today we're going to start with our walking with Psalm 121. Hear these words. I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where will my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. God will not let your foot be moved. God who keeps you will not slumber. The one who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will keep you from all evil. God will keep your life. The Lord will keep your going out and your coming in from this time on and forevermore. I also want to share with you from Isaiah 51. Hear these words. Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness, you who seek the Lord. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, and to the quarry from which you were dug. Look to Abraham your father, and to Sarah who bore you, for he was but one when I called him, but I blessed him and made him many. For the Lord will comfort Zion. He will comfort all her waste places, and will make her wilderness like Eden, her desert like the garden of the Lord. Joy and gladness will be found in her, thanksgiving and the voice of song. A few years ago, Greg and I did our DNA testing. We'd heard about people discovering they had some unexpected genetic connections to faraway places or discovered relatives they hadn't known before. I wasn't surprised at all to discover that I am 99.9% Northwestern European. The 0.1% is considered a Malayala. I can't say that word. I'm going to have to learn it because that's part of my background. Malayali subgroup from the southwest coast of India. Of the 7,462 variants that were tested in my DNA, 269 of them can be traced back to the Neanderthals as the result of ancient humans interbreeding with modern humans before becoming extinct some 40,000 years ago. And then all of that was kind of wrapped up and passed on. Over my shoulder, you can see a photograph of some of my more recent ancestors. I apologize for the light glare. I couldn't find a way to eliminate that this morning. Well, apparently, some of our genes indicate whether we have a predisposition for particular traits. My genes have predicted that I will not have cheek dimples, a cleft chin, or dandruff. My genes have determined that my ring finger is longer than my index finger. Yeah, so how many of you just looked at your fingers right now? My genes indicate that I will be less likely than most to fear public speaking, good thing, and I will favor vanilla or chocolate ice cream and prefer sweet over salty. I guess all this genetic trivia is the result of some trait that was carried by my ancestors and passed along to me. It all makes up part of the rock from which I was hewn. When the psalmist first wrote or sang Psalm 51, they wouldn't have any access to any of the fascinating DNA science or would have known about Neanderthals and odd traits that seem to attach themselves to microscopic proteins that carry inheritance through the ages. So that's not the rock from which we are hewn that the psalmist is talking about. That rock is more in line with the poetry of what's been handed down through things like the book of Genesis. You know the one, part that tells of God shaping a holy handful of humus and then blowing a holy breath into it to give it life. The psalmist is speaking on behalf of God, calling to those who pursue righteousness to connect with their spiritual ancestors. From a spiritual DNA standpoint, it appears the psalmist is saying it's possible we have a predisposition for righteousness, for justice. Just like I can't do anything about the length of my ring finger in comparison to my index finger, followers of God can't do anything about their desire for justice. It's in our DNA, so to speak. It's what we receive when we draw from the holy breath that gives us life. That life is as closely drawn to the seeking of the establishment of a just world as we are to rejoicing in the resurrection. So when the work of faith is hard, when it seems like we move forward one step and back five, listen to the psalmist and look to the rock from which we are hewn. God has been longing and working towards a world that is right for everyone, for years, for eons. God seems to be carrying a don't give up trait and has passed it along to us. God seems to be predisposed to not give up on us and seems to have passed along a gene that carries resurrection and grace and the will to seek out righteousness wherever we can. When we are told to look to the mountains as a source for help, it's an invitation to look to the rock from which we are hewn and lean into the one who gives us the desire for righteousness. I invite you to pray with me. Holy One, we turn our eyes and our hearts and our minds and our souls to you, for it is from you that we have come. You have given us life and breath and a will for justice and righteousness. So let us carry that spiritual DNA into our day, seeking for, reaching out to, creating justice and righteousness and love and peace. For it's not only part of who you are, it is who we are. Thanks be to you. Amen. May this day that is before you be filled with goodness and joy. And if you have lit a candle, I'd invite you to go ahead and extinguish it. And then as you watch the smoke go into the room, let that be a reminder that God goes with you this day. Go in peace.